Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Day Mystic Show. Our mission here is to help you turn whatever you desire into real-life manifestation by sharing revolutionary technology to make that happen for you. We bring such cutting-edge information through our resident wizard, Peter Schenk, and also through such magical guests each week that are really making a difference to improve our lives on a variety of levels. I am your co-host, Donna, along with the producer of the show, the Modern Day Mystic himself, Peter Schenk. Peter.
Donna, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I have a lot of projects on the back burner that are moving forward, and I believe in 3 weeks we're going to be releasing a new program which is going to revolutionize, not a program as in software program, but a program that I have been developing here for quite a while that will move all of the work that I do one cut above the energetic sessions. And if you've seen some of the teasers I've been putting out there on the 33-day program, we're going to be dedicating an entire MDM show and go into all of its details in 3 weeks. And of course, just check the emails for the flyers and all the information on that. It'd be great.
Perfect, perfect. Well, of course, that, is very exciting. And tonight, we have a very, very exciting guest. I am so excited to listen to his story. I have his book. We'll be talking about that here as well. Before I introduce him, a couple things. I want to say a huge shout out to all the women in the world. It is International Women's Month. So, ladies, that's for us. And of course, let me give a shout out to a credible woman. I have not met her, but I've been working with her to bring on the show Dr. Eben Alexander, and Elizabeth is her name, and she has helped me bring him on to the show. So let's get started with introducing him, because we have a very powerful show tonight. So, after decades as a physician and teacher at Harvard Medical School and elsewhere, renowned academic neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander thought he knew how the brain, mind, and consciousness worked. A transcendental near-death experience, NDE, during a week-long coma from an inexplicable brain infection changed all of that completely. He has spent the last 7 years since his NDE reconciling his rich spiritual experience with contemporary physics and cosmology. He discovered that by probing deeply into our own consciousness, we transcend the limits of human brain and the physical material realm. A pioneering scientist and thought leader in consciousness studies, Dr. Alexander has been a guest on Dr. Oz, Oprah, and many other national and international media programs. His book, Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife, and The Map of Heaven, how science, religion, and ordinary people are proving the afterlife, have collectively spent more than 2 years atop the New York Times and international bestseller list. I am so excited. Peter and I were extremely excited to bring him on to the show to introduce him to the Modern Day Mystic audience. And also, we will be opening up the phones a little bit later in the program. So jot this number down, folks, so you'll be ready to call in with your questions. It is 888-369-1396. All right, Peter.
Donna, thank you. Dr. Alexander, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you?
I'm very excited to have you on the show tonight. Everything that you've done, I'm very much in tune with, and I'm excited to hear your experience and what you've gone through, and share it with everyone. So to kick it off, please tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about your experience.
Okay, well, I'm Eben Alexander, MD, neurosurgeon. Spent more than 20 years in academic neurosurgery, including more than 15 years at Harvard Medical School on faculty. And I thought I had some idea of brain, mind, consciousness, and how all that worked. And then in November 2008, I basically woke up one morning, 4:30 in the morning, with severe back pain, severe headache. And within about 3 hours, I was lapsing deep into coma. My family called 911. The EMTs came to the house and put in IVs, tried to break the seizures, couldn't do it. Took me off to the Lynchburg General Hospital emergency room. And of course, by this time, I was deep in coma and seizing and all of that. And they found out very quickly that I had severe gram-negative bacterial meningitis. In fact, things were so dire there at the beginning of the week that my doctors estimated I was down to about a 10% chance of survival just at the very beginning. And it only got worse. The second day they found out it was E. coli meningitis, which is very rare in anybody over the age of 3 months. It almost always happens in newborns. So my doctors were extremely mystified how in the world a 54-year-old adult who was otherwise healthy could come down with this illness. It all got worse and worse during the week, so that by day 7 of coma on a Sunday morning, they held a family meeting where they recommended stopping the antibiotics and just letting nature take its course. By that time, they estimated I was down to a 2% chance of survival with no chance of recovery. And so in that setting, that's why they recommended stopping antibiotics. Now, it was soon after that that I started coming back to this world. And my doctors were no fools. My brain was devastated when I first started to come back. In fact, when I first was opening my eyes there in the ICU room, I had no words, I had no language, I had absolutely no memories of the life of Eben Alexander before coma. In fact, my mother, my sisters, my son standing at the bedside, I had no idea who these beings were. I mean, it's important to point out this thing really destroyed my brain, my neocortex. And of course, what I came to realize over months after that, because words and language came back over hours and days, and my childhood memories came back over weeks. All of my knowledge of more than 20 years in academic neurosurgery, knowledge of chemistry, physics, biology, neuroscience, every bit of that came back by 8 weeks. And I mean, to this day, I would say my doctors have no explanation for that remarkable and miraculous recovery. But the most astonishing aspect of the journey is what I did know when I came back to this world, when I first woke up in that ICU room and had no memories of Eben Alexander's life. Because what I did remember was an astonishing spiritual journey that over the next few months, the more I learned about my illness and reviewed my medical records, talked it over with my doctors, went over all my scans, the more we came to realize that none of what I experienced could have happened according to conventional neuroscience and how it looks at the neocortex, the outer surface of the brain. That's the part that makes us human. And yet that's the part that is specifically and preferentially destroyed by meningitis. And so we had a very deep mystery in trying to explain this, because as much as when I came back to this world, was I in the first week or so trying to explain things to my doctors and others, they would tell me, well, you can't have experienced anything, much less any kind of rich, extraordinary, hyper-real spiritual journey, which is what I had. So the question was really how to explain it. And initially, especially before all my knowledge of brain, mind, consciousness had come back, before I'd gotten deeply into the medical details of my illness, I thought it had to have been some massive hallucination. The words I used for my son was majoring in neuroscience at the time in college. And when he came home to be with me 2 days after I got out of the hospital, I told him it was way too real to be real, which is exactly the best way to put it. I mean, it was much more real than this world. And so my initial thinking, of course, was it had to be a drug effect, some wild dream state. I thought it must have something to do with the destruction of the neocortex. And yet, that's where we got deeply into it. And if you read the appendix of Map of Heaven, of the Proof of Heaven, you'll realize that we had 9 hypotheses that were the main hypotheses trying to explain it as a brain-based mechanism, and yet none of them worked. And so what I came to realize was it was way too real to be real, because it really happened. And of course, I'd never read the near-death experience literature before. So when I finally did start getting into that, I started realizing how my journey was very similar to, many other reports going back thousands of years from all different cultures. I mean, the thing that's so striking about the near-death literature is how similar so many of those stories are in terms of the fundamental pieces that underlie them. And of course, they are somewhat tailored to our individual souls and soul journey, and they're also somewhat tainted by the flavoring of our language and of our personal belief systems, so that, for example, a Christian might see an all-loving light being as Christ, and a Muslim might see a beautiful all-loving light being as Muhammad. An atheist would see the same all-loving light being but not know what to call it. But in fact, the similarities are more striking than the differences when you get into that entire literature. And I read thousands and thousands of near-death reports, and then came to realize that the much bigger question had to do with consciousness. That's what this is really all about, is a much bigger discussion of the mind-body debate, or the relationship between the mind and the brain. And what I've come to realize, and the reason that we're actually writing a third book about all this now, is that my awakening to all this over the last 7 years, which I promise you is nowhere near any kind of completion at all. I feel like I'm still on a very vertical part of the learning curve. But it really mirrors in many ways an awakening that's coming to the whole scientific community now. And it's not just a trivial little shift in thinking, but I think it is one that will rival the Copernican revolution, rival the rise in the 20th century of relativity and quantum physics, is this evolving understanding of what the nature of reality is and consciousness, and how consciousness is fundamental in the universe and creates all of this. It's not that the brain creates consciousness, everything works the other way around. And that kind of realization is something that's coming very strongly to the conventional scientific world as they wake up to trying to get a deeper answer to that 2,600-year-old mind-body discussion than anything we've had to date. So that's why I think this is also fascinating, and it has everything to do with awakening to a much richer version of understanding what humans are doing in this universe, and how much this universe really is kind of wrapped around the evolution of sentient beings, which is what this is all about.
Absolutely. I mean, we have amazing guests on the MDM show, and each one of them has their own unique wake-up experience. I had my wake-up experience about 20 years ago. Prior to my wake-up experience, I worked on Wall Street for 20 years in technology. I didn't know the world existed the way it did. 12 years later, I write software that modifies reality. I help people evolve their consciousness. So, your experience and what you were just explaining to me it just vibrates and just feels perfect. So we hear more and more about people in these near-death experiences, or NDEs. Are these all alike, and if not, how do they differ from each other?
Okay, well, there's actually been quite a bit of scientific research of near-death experiences ever since 1975, when Dr. Raymond Moody wrote that beautiful book, Life After Life. That's what, in many ways, kicked off the modern era of near-death experience research. But important to point out, as Dr. Moody points out in that book, is near-death experiences have been with us for thousands of years. In fact, I would say all of our great religious and spiritual teachings in every single faith, on every continent, and in every millennium have originated with these kinds of deep, spiritually transformative experiences. So people have these experiences and come back and try to make sense of it, and that's what's going on here. I think that the thing, though, that shifted a little bit that makes this all far more interesting, and this has a lot to do with the title of my second book. The second book is called The Map of Heaven, How science, religion, and ordinary people are proving the afterlife. And that is, what we're really talking about here is not my experience or the experience of someone else who wrote some big book on this. What we're really talking about is the millions and millions of people in this world who have had near-death experiences, who have been to the other side and come back. And even though there was a major group of such people over thousands of years, it's due to the fact that in the late 1960s, doctors developed techniques for cardiopulmonary resuscitation to bring people back from cardiac arrest, that we have populated this world over the last 5 decades with tens of millions of souls who have been to the other side. And so that's what we're really talking about, is an overwhelming tidal wave of human experience that needs a deeper explanation than what the the conventional scientific community would offer, which was basically nothing. They sat there and tried to pretend that these, that the tunnel or the bright light or seeing souls of departed loved ones or running into divine spiritual beings, that all that was just some hallucination of the brain, and they wanted to dismiss it. And yet, when you get into the literature on these experiences and talk to people who have had them, you start to realize that the mystery is much deeper than that. And those very simplistic little pseudo-explanations from the medical and the scientific world, especially of those who buy into the false belief that the brain creates consciousness. So, of course, they think that there is no such thing as an afterlife, that when the brain ends, that's the end of all awareness, and they're wrong. That's not what has been told to us by mystics, prophets, and seers, and near-death experiencers, and millions of souls over thousands of years. So we need a much richer explanation for these experiences. And I would say that there are common features. The whole business of coming up through a tunnel and seeing a bright light and encountering divine deities, encountering God, and whatever you want to call that deity at the core of all of existence, encountering the souls of departed loved ones. I mean, these are all very common themes, and they go back a long way. Having a life review, I mean, that's not a new concept. The life review is actually something that was written about 2,400 years ago by Plato in the Republic, where he talks about Armenian soldier who was killed in battle, put on a funeral pyre, and before they lit it up, he came back to life, and boy, did he have a story to tell. Basically, he said that when you die, you go through that life review and go through all the pertinent pieces of your life that still need some kind of amends or lesson to be harvested from them. And of course, if you've been handing out pain and suffering to other people, what that means is you have to live through your thoughts and actions and the impact it had on those other beings by becoming those other beings and feeling the impact of it. The life review is an old concept, thousands of years old, that has been with us all along. And the Armenian soldier, also said that the only thing that matters in the afterlife is how much love you have managed to hand out to this world. And that's from 2,400 years ago. That's not some New Age thinking. So I think these near-death experiences, though, are a very important way of understanding the much deeper relationship of human spirit and soul with all of consciousness and intelligence and the divine throughout the universe.
So what lessons did you learn during your NDE experience, and how did they manifest over your life since it happened?
Well, those lessons go far and wide. The most beautiful and powerful and profound, of course, has to do with that love. And once you've touched that love, come in contact with that infinite healing power of unconditional love, you're forever changed. And that, it happened to me, although it's taken me 7 years to even begin to make sense of it so that I can come up with a worldview as a scientist that incorporates every bit of the lessons that I learned. But that, I think, is the most important one. And also this, the fact that we're all connected through consciousness, and not just with other human beings. All of life, all of conscious sentience throughout the universe is interconnected. And this is a crucial part of what I'd say is the biggest lesson coming with this awakening and awareness in our modern human civilization, is that connectedness is a crucial part of understanding this. There really is one consciousness. And there's this kind of false idea of boundaries of self, but we can find in deep meditation that we can move beyond those false boundaries of self. And that's where you also start to see that things like telepathy, precognition, presentiment, deja vu phenomena, near-death experiences, shared death experiences where physiologically normal, healthy people actually go along in the same journey as a near-death experiencer, but then their soul comes back to this world. And also past life memories in children indicative of reincarnation. I mean, all these categories of the capacity of mental function far beyond what our conventional science admits is the background of what exists now and what we have to explain. And it all has to do with a deeper understanding of consciousness and of a relationship of brain and mind and how consciousness can influence unfolding reality in the physical realm. And I think that's where all this gets very exciting, but it's not just about NDEs.
That concept's easy. You unlimit your thinking, thereby unlimiting your potential. Once you're able to do that, then you understand that everything in existence is made up of energy. We're all interconnected through that energy, and then your thoughts are the most powerful form of creation, thereby creating your reality as you move through it. Now, take all that 30-second spiel and sum it up, and you're going to, you know, there are millions of the zombies out there, and they're just going to be like, huh? What? So I have a question for you. Do you wish you can return to the other side without dying, and is there another way that you've actually tried to return to the other side?
Well, beginning about 2 years after my coma, I came to realize that a much deeper understanding of consciousness was absolutely essential to have any kind of understanding of my experience. And what I came to see is that conscious meditation, deep meditation, was certainly a way to be approaching that. I was also introduced at that time to the use of differential sound frequencies for brain entrainment. And you know, I don't want to go into a lot of detail because it's a fairly kind of complex set of concepts that are involved here. But a phenomenon that had been discovered by a German physiologist named Dove in the mid-1800s is what we're talking about. The loose generic term for it is binaural beats, although in fact there is a far richer kind of unfolding of these concepts. But the general idea is that if you deliver a sound frequency of one particular tone to one ear, say 100 hertz or 100 cycles per second, and then another sound frequency to the other ear, say 104 hertz, so it's slightly different, what happens is there's a circuit in your lower brainstem that actually calculates the difference between those two frequencies and generates a 4 hertz signal in your brain. Now that's a very simple view of it all, but the bottom line is that I believe that what we're able to do by using these differential sound frequencies is to allow our conscious awareness to go free. I mean, basically what I was looking for was some way to duplicate my meningitis.
Sounds like a modern-day acid trip.
Meningitis was how it, you know, as my neocortex, the human part of my brain, was progressively destroyed, what that actually allowed was for much greater clarity of awareness and a much richer consciousness that was far grander than anything I'd ever experienced when locked down in the shackles of the physical brain. And so this is why a lot of the work that I do is sacred acoustics, and for people who are interested in learning more about this kind of differential sound frequency brain entrainment, they should visit sacredacoustics.com, download some of the audio files there, listen through headphones, because they're far more powerful through headphones than through speakers, because by isolating the two channels to the two ears, that's how you can get the maximum impact on the brainstem. But I believe what it's doing is taking the information processing of the neocortex offline, allowing conscious awareness to be freed up. And when it's freed up, it is freed up outside of space and time, because the here and now are part of the illusion that our consciousness puts into play for our awareness in this very limited trickle of kind of conscious awareness that we experience in our normal waking state. And so it's really an understanding that the brain is not the producer of consciousness, but there are ways, especially with this kind of differential sound frequency brain entrainment, to slip behind the veil, to get beyond the veil of the neocortex and have your conscious awareness be much grander. So I've used that kind of technique to return into the NDE experience aspects of the realm, to revisit various guides, to come back in touch with that infinite healing power of unconditional love. But one thing is, I've never to date been able to fully duplicate that rich, mind-blowing, and astonishing ultra-reality that I experienced throughout the Gateway Valley and the core realms of my NDE. Excuse me.
Amazing. Eben, if it's okay with you, I want to take a 3-minute break and do a live activation for everyone on the show utilizing the Source 4 technology.
Okay.
So, everyone listening to the live show or the recording, please go get a glass of water. We're going to switch over here and do a live activation utilizing the Source 4 technology. Okay. So again, you're just going to need a glass of water. Tonight we're going to do an activation on abundance, and I want everyone to think about what abundance means in your life. And I do these quite a bit with on the shows that I do, on the teleseminars, or sometimes on the workshops that we do. But tonight this is all about abundance. So just think for a minute what abundance means to you. Is that more money in your bank account? Is that spending more time with your loved ones? Is that, you know, just feeling the vibration, the love of everything? And what I want you to do is utilize, one of the keys to manifesting anything you want is utilizing your 5 senses. Traditional manifestation, no matter where you read it or how you acquired the knowledge, really breaks down to 2 separate parts: the time by which you release it from your head and the time it comes into fruition. And the distance between the time it's released from your head and the universe brings it forward in your path is what we call the path. Okay, I've taken all of the work out of it, because in traditional manifestation, while 99.9% of the people fail, is because you have doubt or worry across the path. I've redefined manifestation using the Aquaware technology in the Source 4. So basically, we're going to consciously project your manifestation into a glass of water. You're going to drink that water, and then the manifestation comes out of the body on what we call the light rays, or the path. So again, I'm going to go into briefly how the technology works. Tonight we're going to use preset 7. You won't find this in the manual, but preset 7 is all about abundance. Okay, you're looking at the Source 4. This was released about 6 months ago, and people have been having staggering results with it. The symbols you're looking at are what we call the 9 symbols of creation. In my belief system, reality is brought forth through 9 symbols. During my experience, I jotted these symbols down on a napkin, and I was very effective at getting them created in vector graphics and what you're looking at now. So a couple things are going to happen. I want you to utilize your 5 senses however they apply to what your manifestation is. So I like to use the example of a red Ferrari. You want to manifest a red Ferrari in your life. Well, it's just not going to pop up, you know, in your driveway the next day, because that doesn't make sense. But what will happen is tomorrow morning you'll go to your mailbox and there'll be a check in there from a long lost aunt that says, hey, you know, here's the money to buy a Ferrari. Great. That makes sense. So again, think about what manifestation means to you. I'm going to count backwards. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to click entering the Source 4. And the only thing that is required of the user is to consciously project your manifestation in the water. All you do is just put your attention on the water. Software does the rest. Here we go, and I'll walk through what the software is doing. 3, 2, 1. We are now running water preparation. We are removing the energetic signatures from the water. We're removing the memories from the water, returning it to a pristine state. We're now running user preparation. We're creating a thin veil in the water that goes right to the subconscious mind and opens it up for acceptance of the manifestation. We are now pre-nucleating the water. We're getting it ready for the light paths, which will carry your manifestation. We're now setting up the light paths in the water. And I want everyone to look at the water, because at this point it starts doing crazy things. Sometimes it vibrates. Sometimes it carbonates. It'll change colors. It'll crawl out of the glass. Sometimes it even soaks through the glass. Now we're nucleating the water with your manifestation. Okay? In traditional manifestation, your manifestation comes out of your head on your thoughts, and the universe grabs it. This is very different. We have now programmed your water with your manifestation. So I'd like everyone to go ahead and drink as much as you want, and notice the taste and the texture of the water, folks. Very different. And then I want you to relax and sit back for a few seconds and allow that energy to move into your body. And what you'll feel is, you'll feel these holes starting to poke out. That is what we call the light paths coming out of the body, carrying your manifestation. Manifestations with the source for happening within 72 hours typically, up to a week or so, depending. I always typically say manifest a blue button, a matchstick, a thimble, a pin, a needle, something small to begin with, but this is about manifestations and what manifestation means in your head. Again, just feel the light coming out of the body. Now, I also want to announce an incentive for tonight's listening audience. We are offering 33% off across the entire product line in anything that we have on the website, and that incentive is 33 off show. 33 OFF SHOW. It's good for 48 hours after tonight. 33 off show gets you 33% off everything in the product line tonight. Okay, Eben, back to you. So, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my experience with NDEs. And although I've never had one, it was interesting because I was watching a show a few years back on the Discovery Channel, and they talked about Navy pilots testing for when the aircraft go off of the aircraft carriers, and they put them in these machines that go around. And what happens is, when the human body hits 6 or 8 Gs, the blood starts to drain from the head, and these pilots were having these near-death experiences, quote unquote, and what was coming out of their mouth was, we saw the light, we went down a tunnel, we talked to some loved ones, and we came back. Now, everyone that has a wake-up experience, such as yourself and other people that I've worked with, their wake-up experiences are all different. So in my reality, my NDE experience, it borderlines on the psychic ability of people. And what does that mean? I believe that when a person moves on out of their body, everything that they were is what we call is a carbon copy in what we call the Astroplane. And the Astroplane is the first level of consciousness outside the body that seers, seekers, shamans, everyone goes to contact their loved ones. But what they don't understand is, it's not your loved ones you're talking to. You're talking to a carbon copy, an energy carbon copy of everything that they were. All their emotions, memories, physical, everything is caught in what we call the Astroplane. Now the soul, if you want to call it that, then moves on to source, and that's another discussion. But it's just, it never ceases to amaze me at when people such as yourself have these amazing wake-up experiences, and what they do. So please continue with what we were talking about before, about your NDE experience.
Well, I think the best thing would be probably to get into the elements of what I saw in the experience. Is that kind of where you're going with that, or?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Well, It all started in what I call the earthworm's eye view, a very primitive, coarse, unresponsive realm. And it was like being in dirty jello. I have a strong memory of roots or blood vessels all around me. And, you know, I early on after the experience, I thought that was the best consciousness my brain could muster when it was soaking in pus and the neocortex was being destroyed. The good news is that didn't last forever. I was rescued from that earthworm eye view by a slowly spinning, clear, pure white light that had fine gold and silvery tendrils coming off of it. And as it came towards me, slowly spinning, it had a perfect musical melody. And it opened up like a rip in the fabric of that ugly earthworm eye view realm, and it led up into this brilliant valley. So in many ways, this is like coming up through a dark tunnel out of that murky earthworm eye view, but into this crisp, sharp, ultra-real valley. And I was moving up through it not because I had any body awareness. In fact, I had no body awareness during any part of this journey. But I was a speck of awareness on a butterfly wing. And this is one of millions of butterflies. And we were looping and swirling in these vast spiraling formations. And that included going down into that lush greenery of that beautiful valley. And everything was in bloom and blossom and growing. There was no hint of any death or decay. And I can still remember the textures of flowers and buds and blossoms on trees. And all of it was very dynamically opening and growing, even as we were flying through and witnessing all this. Now, it turns out that also there were thousands of beings down there in this valley that were all dressed in very kind of simple but very colorful clothing. And I remember this perfect warm summer breeze that blew through. And in fact, that was my first awareness of the divine, because in fact, one of the important things to point out about my near-death experience is that I was amnesic for the life of Eben Alexander. I've also already pointed out how when I woke up in the ICU room, I had no personal memories of Eben Alexander's life. I had no words of language. Well, that was a situation all through the near-death experience. So in that beautiful valley, I was witnessing all this incredible ultra-real valley that was filled with life and love and the butterflies and sparkling waterfalls and the pools and all this. And there was a beautiful woman beside me on the butterfly wing. She was dressed in that same kind of simple peasant garb as all the villagers down dancing below us, the souls between lives, as I put it later. But I remember she looked at me. She was kind of my guardian angel. And she looked at me with this look of pure, unconditional love. And the messages that she gave to me telepathically that came in as pure thoughts, of course, I believe are the central part of the message for proof of heaven. And that message to me from her was most reassuring. And basically, you are deeply loved and cherished forever. You will be taken care of. You have nothing to fear. And I cannot tell you how liberating and just totally refreshing this message from her was. Well, it turns out, though, that was just kind of the beginning of the journey, because then what happened was I realized that all of the joy and merriment down below us, with all the souls dancing in that valley, was being fueled by these angelic choirs, by these swooping orbs of golden lights leaving sparkling trails against a blue-black velvety sky with billowing clouds of pure color. And I remember all of those angelic choirs providing the sound and vibration and frequency that allowed all of our lower four-dimensional space-time world to collapse, and then that whole deep time, that realm of causality of our higher souls in that gateway valley, which I would say is often where those kind of reuniting with our higher soul and soul groups, going through life reviews, encountering the infinite loving power of the divine, all those things occur in those realms, in that realm, and yet that was just the beginning of multiple layers. And I remember all of that collapsing down. There's a whole different order of temporal causality in that realm, so that our earth time is not a primary causal chain at all, but it's much more the order of ascendance of our souls and soul groups in that higher realm that defines the more true ordering of these events. Now, as I saw that collapsing down, that left at the end with the whole higher dimensional multiverse throughout all of eternity as this complex oversphere that was there for the lessons that I was given in that core realm. Now, the core was infinitely beyond any kind of explaining in a human sense. It was verging on that pure oneness of the divine. I often talk about it as if it was kind of the border of a black hole, so that you're kind of on the cusp, on the edge of, all of the kind of parceling out that occurs into these lower spiritual realms in our material realm. But at that core realm, you're really getting close to the pure, infinite oneness of that divine being. In fact, when I described that core realm, initially it was that infinite inky blackness that was, of infinite dimensional space. I mean, so much so that the whole higher dimensional multiverse appeared like this small ball that was there for demonstration. And yet I was also aware of the infinite healing power of that God, that deity, that source that was overflowing that infinite and eternal space of the core, but also a brilliant orb of light that I thought was there to serve as kind of a translator, interpreter, or something like that. And that strong sense of the three of us, but I hope everyone realizes by now that my own conscious awareness at that point was far beyond anything that could be described as, an individual human's consciousness. This was the far greater version of infinite oneness and of all consciousness throughout the universe that each and every one of us, I believe, can tap into in deep meditative states and in NDEs and other kinds of experiences, and also, of course, tap into between lives, like when we leave this physical body once and for all. And it turns out I would oscillate between all those levels. I would tumble back down to that earthworm eye view from that sanctum sanctorum, the loftiest dwelling place of the divine in that core realm. Without any kind of explanation, I would find myself back in that earthworm eye view. But the good news is I learned that by remembering the musical notes of the melody, that enabled me to conjure up that slowly spinning perfect white light that would come towards me again and then serve as a portal yet again to ascend back into those ultra-real levels, up into that gateway valley on the butterfly wing with all the dancing souls and everything else, including the beautiful girl on the butterfly wing. And the thing that was so haunting at the end of it all was when I came back to this world, I came to realize I'd been on a very authentic spiritual journey, something that I never would have believed possible before my coma, and yet it seemed to be, in many ways, cheating me, because if I had scripted this, the more I read about near-death experiences, especially beginning about 6 weeks after my coma, after I'd written down the core memories of my whole experience, which took about 6 weeks to do, I then got deeply into near-death experiences. My older son, Eben IV, had advised me not to read anything until I'd written down everything I could remember from my own journey. That was the best advice I've ever gotten. I'm glad he told me to do that. But anyway, that way I had a raw database of my experience that was untainted by having read anyone else's experience. And that was a very crucial starting point that ended up leading towards the proof of heaven over many, many years of hard work. But in fact, so in those realms, I would oscillate through those realms, and then finally at the end, because every time I entered that core realm, I was told, you're not here to stay. We'll teach you many things. Now, of course, that was not in words.
Come on.
Yeah, and so, but anyway, they were right. I wasn't there to stay. And there came a time when recalling the musical notes of the melody no longer worked to conjure up that beautiful spinning white light and portal into the ultra-real Gateway Valley. And to say I was sad at that point would be a massive understatement, although I also had come to realize by that time that I could fully trust that I would be taken care of, that I was deeply loved and cherished. And so that's when I witnessed all the souls around me going off into the distance and the energy of their prayers to bring me back, and also saw the 6 faces that I saw at the very end of the coma journey, 5 of whom were physically there the last 24 hours I was in coma. And they helped me to pinpoint that the vast majority of the coma experience must have happened between days 1 and 5 of coma, and not day 7 when I was coming out of it. And that was very important later on in trying to come up with a mechanism for this and explain it when I was trying to evaluate every possible way that it could have happened in my brain, as opposed to, well, how else do you explain all this? So that's really what the whole journey has been about, and then all of the unfolding over the last 7 years of trying to make sense of this in an understanding of consciousness.
Do you think the scientific and medical communities will shift their thinking anytime soon?
I think they are shifting their thinking very rapidly, even as we speak. One example I will give you, I was asked to participate in an 18-month series in the peer-reviewed medical literature. One of the top state medical journals in the United States is Missouri Medicine. It's the state medical journal for Missouri. And John Hagen has edited this whole series on NDEs, 18-month series. It includes 3 accounts of NDEs among physicians, including my story, and then also many articles from people like Raymond Moody and Bruce Grayson, others, doctors who have studied these experiences for decades. They've studied tens of thousands of these reports. And basically, that whole series is going to be published as a book. It's a book that will be coming out in about 3 or 4 months. It'll be entitled The Science of Near-Death Experiences. It's all peer-reviewed medical literature, written mainly by physicians. And the big major bottom line of this science on near-death experiences is they come out and say, we don't have any little simplistic materialist science explanation for these at all. In fact, they completely challenge everything we thought we knew about brain, mind, and consciousness, and they completely revolutionize our thinking of answering the mind-body debate over the last 2,400 years and where it's all headed. And where it's really all headed is a complete awakening of all of humanity to the fact that we are eternal spiritual beings and this is a spiritual universe. I think that kind of a book coming out from the medical and scientific community will go a long way towards waking this world up to an understanding about the profound nature of these experiences and what they tell us about the nature of reality. And it has everything to do with realizing that some of the deepest lessons of the ancient spiritual traditions of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., are all about that love and compassion, and that these are rules of the higher realms, and they have everything to do with how we must live our lives here. There's been tremendous destruction to humanity through this crazy worship of materialism. And when I say that, I'm talking about scientific materialism that tries to pretend that the only thing that exists is the physical world. Whereas, in fact, a much richer and deeper scientific understanding of the nature of reality will come out honoring that consciousness is fundamental, that the divine in each of us is absolutely real, and that the material world is only a small subset of what really exists in this universe. And we are all part of that much bigger existence. And the fact that we can move beyond those simplistic little non-explanations from materialist scientists trying to explain away near-death experiences as, involving oxygen tension or levels of CO2 in the blood and all this kind of nonsense that really leads nowhere, we actually are getting somewhere much deeper. But it's no longer the shallow end of the pool where, our materialist scientists are close to thinking that they might have a theory of everything. We've actually moved into the deep end of the pool now, where things may be a little more complicated. I often like to say that the science that I worshiped before my coma was kindergarten level, and now the world is moving into first grade. So, it doesn't mean we're remotely in the ballpark of a theory of everything. In fact, I will tell you that my journey showed me very clearly that no human brain and mind will ever have a theory of everything, because we cannot remotely come into that kind of an understanding of the nature of all the workings of all of reality. But it's something that tempts the modern scientific thinker, and has for hundreds of years, to say, I almost understand it all. And it's when people start believing that scientists are that knowledgeable that they're really losing all track of reality. And I think it's incumbent on scientists to be honest about what they don't know. And one thing they don't have the remotest clue of is the relationship between brain and mind and the phenomenon of consciousness. And that is a crucial part of exposing the house of cards of our conventional materialist science that's about to collapse.
So, Eben, if people could do one thing right now to improve their lives, what would you recommend?
Well, I would recommend meditation. I mean, going within is the way to go out into this universe. It gives us a much greater clarity and knowing about our own purpose for existence. It is crucial for our health. I will tell you as a neurosurgeon that I've come to realize that you cannot even discuss physical, mental, emotional health without having a much more robust notion of spiritual health. Given that we're all spiritual beings and this is a spiritual universe, we can't even remotely begin to understand our health and to kind of manifest the health we might want without acknowledging our spiritual nature and the interconnectedness of all of spirit and consciousness. So I would say meditation is probably the most important ingredient for coming to realize the much grander being that each and every one of us is than a little birth to death confined to this one little physical body.
Awesome explanation. We're going to shift over to a quick Q&A. Donna, do we have any questions from the listening audience?
Boy, do we. We have a lot of comments and questions. I'm going to have to scroll back up, but we do have some questions, and I want to find one. And of course, folks, you can also call, and that number is 888-369-1396. 888-369-1396. So here's a question from Barbara. Barbara says, Dr. Alexander.
They just want to call me like crazy.
Are we taking that call?
Not yet, no.
Okay, great. Dr. Alexander, how or what do you think about people who see and can shift energy? In light of your experience, are you more open to mystics, etc.?
Yes, I'm much more open to mystics. I have met many people who can see energy, who talk about, for example, the energy they may see around me. I cannot do that. I am unable to see any such energy except in deep meditative states. I can see it, but I cannot see it in my normal waking consciousness. But I've interacted with many people who can, and based on the specifics and the details of what they offer and what they've explained to me in many different settings, I believe that a lot of that is very real. I don't really understand it so much, even though I'm recently getting deeply into some notions of biophotons and of what are called twister energy and other forms of energy that have to do with auras and that kind of thing. And so I think the scientific understanding of it is just beginning. But personally, I've been convinced that it's a very real phenomenon.
Nice, very nice. We also have a question, another question from Barbara. She wants to know, have you had a mystical experience while using sacred acoustics as well?
Yeah. Yes, I've had very profound mystical experiences. In fact, I often, in presentations, talk about when I first encountered the soul of my father. As I point out in Proof of Heaven, the fact that he was not present in my NDE was a real shocker. And it took me years to even begin to get down into the depths of understanding all of the dynamic around his failure to appear. And I have encountered him in deep meditation, and in very clear terms, he's made it clear to me why he was not present as part of my near-death experience. But the important fact has to do with that I use the sacred acoustics kind of tones to get deeply into that state, to get that awareness from my father, and now I often interact with him in similar meditative states.
I don't meditate at all. My mind moves way too quickly to even even sit still for 30 seconds and try and pull it all together. I'm actually at my best, believe it or not, when I'm on the edge of the consciousness grid. It's, the consciousness grid at 200 miles an hour with my hair on fire. That's when I do my best thinking. And it was interesting because you mentioned the ability to see energy, and you've talked to people. That's what I built my entire business model on, is having what we call the gift of sight. It allows me to see energy using my physical eyes and a part of my brain that was activated during my wake-up experience to look very quickly into someone's energetic field in their physical body, in their light body, the surroundings that are around them, and help them clean up. And I when I do energy work on people, I always, it's like the exterminators coming and the cockroaches kind of go and hide. And energy, whether it's in physical form or non-physical form, is consciousness. And the stuff that we accumulate over the course of our lives that likes to embed itself in our bodies or our light bodies that cause havoc on the body, mind, and spirit, and that translates into the physical plane as a whole host of human ailments, always goes down to what we call the root cause. And whether you're a seeker, a shaman, a healer, or anything specialized in this field, they always deal with what I call the attachment. That's what manifests on the physical surface, right? So if you're bipolar, you have depression, there's an energetic cause underlying for that. And a shaman can help you with that, but they deal with what I call the attachment. That's what manifests on the physical surface. I don't play in that realm. I see the root cause for what it is. We go in and we take it out, and there's a number of different ways we can do that. But you've been hitting on a lot of points, right? I just want to jump up and interrupt you. Go, oh my God, I've had that experience. I know exactly what you're talking about, but that would be totally unprofessional, and we don't do that here, right, Donna? Right? Do you want to switch over to live callers now?
Yeah, I do, and I have to ask this one because Becky brought up a really good question, and it's something that I want to know as well. And that question is, Dr. Alexander, have you seen yourself in at least one past life? Have you seen yourself in a coma, like in a past life?
I have. I've been through past life regressions, and I have seen myself in past life. One of the troubles I have with that in terms of explaining this and to the world is the confirmation and validation, because in fact the past life experiences I've had were kind of unremarkable. I was not like some nobility or something. I was various different roles, but none of them were outstanding enough in a way that you could then go back and look through history or something on the internet or somehow try to track it down. So that kind of validation, of course, would always be very reassuring, and it's something that I seek in all of my kind of efforts to understand such things. But so far, I have not yet come up with the kind of validation that I would like to know about my past lives. But I've certainly experienced some pretty profound and very real senses of past lives, some of which could have been thousands of years ago. So it's a pretty rich territory. But the big question is always, what am I imagining versus what can I actually hang my hat on as being true experience that is somehow connected to the soul and its journey.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Here,
Okay.
do we have the caller still?
Yeah, no, we lost him, but folks, we're going to switch over to the 800 number, so when you call this time, I will actually pick it up.
888-369-1396. Again, 888-369.
Hi, this is Peter. You're live with myself and...
369-1396.
Hi, you need to walk away from your computer, please. You're causing a feedback loop.
Okay. All right.
You're live with Peter and Dr. Alexander?
Yes, hello?
Hi. You're live with Peter and Dr. Alexander on the MDM Show. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, I was just wondering what his view of entities are from his framework, in terms of, particularly that goes to...
Eben, did you understand that?
Yeah, I did. His question was about entities and ghosts and that kind of thing. I mean, one thing that has become very clear is with this notion of eternity of soul and of consciousness, that of course souls are still here, and that, you know, especially when you talk to people about near-death experiences, deathbed visions, shared death experiences, there's plenty of evidence that the souls of our departed loved ones are available to us at those major forms of transition. Well, it turns out that souls can also get stuck. They can get stuck in limbo, and that's what explains, you know, some of the apparent cases of hauntings and that kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of reality to that, and to the presence of angels and other kind of influences that can help us in these lives. I'm not sure where else his question was going to go beyond that, but
did that help
to understand that our connection to our loved ones does not end with the death of the physical body. That these relationships, this beautiful tapestry of our interrelationships, goes through multiple lifetimes, and certainly involves the reality of our loved ones' souls with us, really all the time.
See, what's interesting is, in my belief system, there is no past and there is no future. There's only the now. So everything is happening in what we call simultaneity. So the past is happening now and the future is actually happening now. If you have the ability, through maybe an NDE experience, you can tap into these certain areas and acquire information to help you out on your current trajectory.
Very true.
Did that help you out, sir?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Again, folks, we are live on the MDM Show taking phone calls for Dr. Alexander. You're a very interesting person to talk to. I could speak to you for hours about these subjects.
Oh, well, I'd love to talk for hours, but I don't think I can tonight.
Hi, this is Peter. You're live on the MDM Show with Dr. Alexander and myself. Who is? Hi, could you walk away from your computer, please? You're causing a feedback loop. Hello?
Hello, Peter.
Hi.
Hi, this is Francine calling.
How are you?
Yes. I have a question for Dr. Alexander. Your story is fascinating, Dr. Alexander. I wanted to ask you, my husband suffered sudden cardiac arrest 8 years ago. He was in a coma for 3 days, woke up, and unfortunately his experience is nothing like yours. 8 years later, he's still caught somewhere between this reality and another reality. He doesn't know, he doesn't speak. And I've been using brainwave and train meditation on him for several years. And I really calmed him and centered him. But I wanted to know, do you have any other suggestions, anything else I can do to either help him get back into this reality or help him into the reality where he's hung up, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, can you all just repeat the question, the simple question?
Can you repeat that one more time, please? Just kind of chunk it down.
Well, I'm asking if you have any suggestions on what I can do to help my husband either get back into this reality or into the reality where he's trying to get to after his NDE. He never woke up again. In other words, he's awake, but he can't speak. So he's completely incapacitated. And this has been 8 years now.
I can help you with that real quick.
What was the cause of the coma?
You sorry?
What was the cause of the coma in the first place?
He was in a coma for 3 days.
What was the cause of the coma?
Sudden cardiac arrest.
He had a cardiac arrest.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get enough information. It sounds like he's been incapacitated for several years from that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really something that I feel I could answer at all without a whole lot more details about his medical situation. I mean, what I can tell you is that prayer does have tremendous power, and that's what I would recommend is for you, to pray for that recovery, that the appropriate outcome be there for him, and acknowledge that love, the unconditional love for yourself and for him, in all of that.
I'll give you a quick hand. Next time,
Okay.
he's drinking liquid, make it water. And what I want you to do is just take out a piece of paper. I want you to draw, and you can go back and listen to the repeat of the show to get this, but you're going to draw a big circle as big as you can on that piece of paper. Then you're going to draw a triangle inside the circle. So the top, the bottom, and the bottom right are touching the inside of the circle. Inside the triangle, you're going to put a little plus sign, and then right in the crosshairs of the cross line, I want you to draw a little P. Just fill it in, maybe a centimeter by a centimeter. You take a glass of water, you put it right on top of it. You move your body over, you look down through the glass of water, make sure it's clear, and allow your peripheral vision to watch what moves on the outside of the circle, okay? That's your husband's condition. What you want to do is you want to draw that into the water simply by putting your attention on the water and repeating the words out loud. I honor the space in which you exist. As that consciousness or the condition moves into the water, you don't want to drink it, okay? It's very important. You turn around and you give it to him. One positive, one negative will cancel each other out. And what I'd like you to do is get a hold of Donna in a couple weeks. You do this 2 or 3 times a day with water. Get a hold of Donna in a couple weeks and let me know how he's working out. And again, I don't pretend to be a medical professional, which I'm not. I just do energy work. But, you know, being intuitively guided to help people such as yourself in situations like that, I do have a very good track record. So again, you can go back and listen to the call. Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you, Peter.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Dr. Alexander.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we got time for one more lucky caller. What do you think, Eben? One more?
Sure, sounds good.
Next victim. Come on, Donna, bring him on.
Well, of course, folks, 888-369-1396 is the phone number. Please remember to walk away from your computer. You can always come back and listen to your question after the show is over. But the number again, 888-369-1396. Remember to mute your computer or walk away from it completely so that we don't get that feedback.
See, just quickly, Eben, what I was doing with this woman was I look at her husband energetically, and I intuitively download something, and I'm not going to make claims of what it does because I can't do that, but more so than not, these types of sacred geometry, the way you move the consciousness outside the circle, project it into the water, and really what rolls out of my mouth, move these people into an amazing space at light speed. And that's where all of this is going. You know, I asked you before, you talk about the medical, I asked about the medical community waking up to this. This is the new world.
Yes,
this type of technology.
They are waking up, you're right.
You know, these on-the-fly, energetic downloads that happen, they're happening to people all the time, and they are so effective at moving people into a better space. It's incredible. Really? I mean, the phone was ringing like crazy 3 minutes ago. Now no one knows.
Well, I have a question.
Here.
So I have a question, Dr. Alexander. With everything that you have experienced and know before and after, and I guess during, now that you're back here with us, are you afraid? Is there anything that you're afraid of?
Well, I mean, one thing that's crystal clear is that there's nothing to fear about death. Afraid, I don't really think so. I mean, I've got, the kind of normal parental concerns for my sons. I have a 28-year-old and a 17-year-old son, and but fear, no, I'd say fear is not really part of the big package, and so much of that, of course, comes from having a much grander view of, what this is all about, why we're all here, and that includes, my purpose for being here, and also that very strong sense of connection. This is something that is so important that I try and stress, in Proof of Heaven, is realizing how powerful it is to remember, because it's really a remembering more than a learning, our connection to the divine and our connection to all other beings, and that love, that unconditional love, has infinite power to heal. And these kind of things, as we come to know them in a very full and real sense, really do change our lives. And fear is really something of, you know, you were saying a little while ago when we were talking about the meditation, and you said, Peter, that you know, the little voice in the head that prevented meditation. Well, what I often encourage people to understand is the voice in our head is not our consciousness. Our awareness, the observer within, is our consciousness. The voice in the head, by and large, is really the tool of the ego. And the ego uses fear and anxiety as its most effective tools. And, you know, once you get to this much higher state of being and understanding of connectedness to a much higher level and to the divine and all, that ego and all of its little fear and anxiety tools no longer has such sway over us. So the fear is something you can let go of.
I got a great way I teach people to deal with the ego. So just quickly, let's say you want to run, you want to start running tomorrow, right? And you want to drop 20 pounds and run a mile or whatever you want to do. The ego is going to come out and it's going to say, nah, you're fat, you can't do it, you know? And then that kind of just pulls the wind out of your sails because the little voice and everything. But what you do is the ego has no eyes. It's in a box that's black. It has no windows. It can't see anything that's going on. It only knows what you feed it. So feed it what it wants to hear. Say, you know what, you're right, I can't run that mile. I smoke, I'm out of shape, and I'm just going to go eat a box of bonbons and watch whatever on the TV and sit down. And then you've fed your ego. You've put it back to sleep, and you get out there and you do what you got to do. Works great. Absolutely.
That's a good trick. I like that a lot. Well, you know, people got to realize the ego would much rather see you and your body dead than see your ego dead. That's what happens in addiction and alcoholism all the time. Yep. And sometimes, unfortunately, the bottom of someone's illness is too low to sustain life, so they die from the addiction. But that has the ego winning, and that's why often you find that therapy for that kind of thing involves psychodrama with playing out the death of the ego, because that's a much better situation than actually having the human being that's the host of the ego die from it all. So people just have to get a broader understanding of ego and its relationship to us, and how we're much more than that. We're much more than the thoughts, and we're much more than our ego.
Absolutely. Okay, Donna, we are about at the end of our time here.
I think we are.
Dr. Alexander, do we have any announcements tonight for the crowd?
Yeah, let's just, one last time, folks, of course, you know, we have a special across the board, 33% off show. That's the coupon or the incentive code, 33 off show. It's good for all the products, and it's good for 48 hours. So take advantage of that. Again, Dr. Eben Alexander.com. Please go get his book. I am reading Proof of Heaven right now, and very excited to be able to be reading that book. And I want to encourage folks to go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com, wherever you can, to get the book. Very interesting. Dr. Alexander, is there a way that people can connect with you? Is that through your website, through Facebook? What do you suggest?
Yeah, people can reach out to me through ebenalexander.com. That's really the best way. I do have a Facebook and Twitter presence, but I use that mainly for announcements. I don't pay much attention to it, so better just to reach out to me through ebenalexander.com. Other resources I'd point out to people, you can learn a lot at Eternia, eternea.org. Fantastic website that's all about frontier science and the synthesis of science and spirituality. Also, people interested in meditation, I would recommend go to sacredacoustics.com, and you can learn a lot more there. Also, people interested in near-death experiences, go to iands.org. That's International Association of Near-Death Studies, iands.org. A very useful and powerful site to help people learn more and report their own NDEs.
Dr. Alexander, thank you. You're an amazing guy.
Well, thank you very much for having me. You all are doing some amazing work, and it's a real honor and privilege to join you, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Oh, we must do it again sometime very soon. And of course, you know, coming up, we have Dr. Kaplan next. He's from Germany. He is going to talk about eyesight and eye healing. And then we have Karen Newell. She's going to be talking about brain entrainment. So we're going to be coming back to the brain. So lots of good things coming up. And of course, end of the month, Peter's going to be talking about a very special program coming up. So lots of good things happening in March, folks.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. Great show.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks so much. Good night.